Now, you were involved in the monk debate in Toronto, where you argued that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. Two-thirds of the audience gave you an emphatic victory. And let's have a look at a clip. I think we can see why you won the debate.
And there is no law of war that says you're allowed to start a war and then complain when you lose it. And if Mahdi cares about the Palestinian casualties, as I'm sure he does, then tell your bosses in Qatar to tell their friends in Gaza to stop the war and give back the hostages.
Douglas, tell me why you believe anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism.
I say it's obvious that in all of history, anti-Semitism has been a shape-shifting virus. Sometimes people hated the Jews for their race. Sometimes they hated them for their religion. In this era, the only permissible way to hate the Jews is to hate them for having a state. And as I mentioned in the debate, this absolute obsession with the single Jewish state in the world, this way in which people who never turned out on the streets when Bashar al-Assad was killing 6 times the number of people who've died in every war involving Israel since 1948, when the Arab armies advanced. If you didn't come out on the streets when Bashar al-Assad killed 6 times that number of people in a decade, but you did turn out to attack Israel after October the 7th, you're an anti-Semite. And there are many, many other examples of this. I gave examples in Canada, in the city I was in, Toronto, synagogues firebombed, Jewish schools shot at, a Muslim mob going through a Jewish area screaming about the Zionist rats and pigs. And this is just anti-Semitism. And it's the only form of it. And as I said, this doesn't mean that everyone who is anti-Zionist knows they're an anti-Semite. Plenty of them are just incredibly ignorant and drinking from wells they don't understand. But a lot of them, and I think Mehdi Hassan is one of them, know exactly what they're doing. And it was a pretty vicious evening. Natasha Hausdorff, great British barrister, was on my side. And I think we convincingly won the hall. But we were against, some pretty unpleasant opposition. And one of them I was referring to there, Mehdi Hassan of Al Jazeera, he presents himself as caring about the Palestinian peoples. His bosses in Doha are one of the major supporters of Hamas and have the Hamas leadership living in Doha beside Al Jazeera's headquarters. And as I mentioned a bit later in the debate, Mehdi Hassan and his fellow alleged humanitarians, they pretend they care about the Palestinian people, and really I think they just want to beat up on the Jewish state and eradicate it. I think most of the anti-Zionists this era, that's really what they're after. They're after the eradication of the Jewish state. But I mentioned him, it would come a lot better coming out of his mouth. It would sound a lot better if a contributor to Al Jazeera hadn't have been discovered last week to have been holding Jewish hostages in his home in Gaza and torturing them. One of a number of Al Jazeera journalists, as it happens, who have been found to be terrorists in recent years in Gaza. I think it's absolutely despicable that people pass themselves off as caring about the Palestinian peoples. And there are all of these people working at Al Jazeera who are actually involved not just in killing Jews, but in causing the war that has led to the suffering of Palestinians. It's absolute hypocrisy, and I'm very glad that the audience in Toronto realized that.